You're very welcome back. I've been looking forward to this conversation. My next guest would like to be president. And of course, he wants to start off by being the flag bearer for the NDC. Currently, you'll find him in Parliament as a seasoned legislator. Alban Kingsford Bagbin believes that he's the right man to lead the biggest opposition party in Ghana to victory in the 2020 election. Of course, until this point, he has been the second deputy speaker in Parliament. He was majority leader before then, in fact, even minority leader for a little while, at least for a few hours, before he was then appointed second deputy speaker of Parliament. Mr. Bagbin is my guest on The Pulse today, and we're going to find out, among many other things, why he wants to be president. Mr. Bagbin, how nice to see you. Thank you for making the time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm here for you.
Oh. And of course, you've just come back from Christmas holidays when things quieted down a little bit, but no doubt you've still been working busily, seeking the nomination of your party. Maybe that's where we'll begin. Why you, Mr. Bagbin?
Well, I thought you should have been answering the question, why not me? Why not me? You know, I believe strongly that I've gathered a lot of political and leadership capital that I should offer to the country. You know, you should be asking yourself, why am I the first to have scored 26 years continuously in Parliament since we started multi-party elections in 1951? Why me? You know? And I believe strongly that it is not for nothing that God has put me there for all these years. And I also believe strongly it is not for nothing that my colleagues in Parliament, together with the party, has kept me in the leadership role for 18 years now. And both in the party, in Parliament, and in the executive, I've had hands-on experience. I have the academic background of reading masters in leadership and governance. I've had the opportunity of leading the Interparliamentary Union, that is the World Parliament, and as a representative of the African continent, the only representative of the African continent in a committee, we were able to restructure the World Parliament as it is now operating. I've been in leadership of Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. I've been part of the global efforts to contain corruption in the world. And with the local experience of being a minority leader, it's not a little while, for 8 good years, you know, and you know that from 2001 to 2008 were not easy years, because that's the first time there was this democratic transition from a party in power to a party in opposition. So the culture of democracy at that time was very weak, and you have to gather a lot of muscle and courage with tremendous backing to be able to move as the leader of the opposition, which I did very well. And when, by the grace of the Almighty God, my party won power in 2008, I became the majority leader, according to our late President Mills, just to give me the opportunity to establish Parliament, which I did before he called me to join the executive. And my record is there at the Ministry of Water Resources, Works and Housing and Health. And you recall again when His Excellency John Dramani Mahama took over, I was first given the position as one of the 3 wise men, you know. And having been their leader before, I call myself the chairman of the 3 wise men. And we did a lot of work behind the scenes to support leadership of a number of sectors. The health sector, the education sector, and the aviation sector. And so, having been given this rare opportunity by my constituents, and I'm extremely, extremely grateful to them for not following the norm where members of parliament are changed at will, maybe we'll be able to build some trust, and that's what have kept me and them moving together up to date. And I'm grateful to them for the opportunity. I think that I have something to offer the whole country. And I can only do that once we've opted for multi-party democracy through the party system. And that's why first I want to be the flag bearer of my party before I can now jump into media race to be the president of Ghana.
Indeed. Now, you are putting yourself forward at an interesting time. At a time when the former president wants another chance and has made it quite clear he's also in the race. Now, for him to have once been chosen by your party and then by the nation, and for him to have then been rejected by the nation and then put himself forward again, for you to believe that you are a better option, you must be indicating that there is something about John Mahama that actually wouldn't be the best for Ghana. What is wrong with John Mahama?
Well, it's not me, it's Ghana. The verdict is there. It's not me who rejected him. I supported him, and he knew that wholeheartedly. And in the 2016 elections, I did a lot of things, not in just issues of advice, but actual support, and going around campaigning in the country in support of him. He's very aware of that. And so the results have shown that people were not happy with his leadership, not his performance, because the performance as a whole was that of the record of the National Democratic Congress. I think that's where Ghanaians are getting it wrong. Our discourse is talking about individuals, but that is not the system we are into. We are into multi-party constitutional democracy. And so when a party is given an opportunity, it's a party that should take the responsibility. And that's one of the reasons why I want to lead, because we need to put the parties in good stead, you know. We need to make the parties healthy. We need to make them strong. The parties that, the quality of the party determines the quality of the government. And I think that we have reneged on that responsibility as a country. And we're having parties that are just political election machines. And we need to move away from that. So that record is usually not the record of the former president, John Dramani Mahama, but it's the record of the NDC. The president only acts as a leader, and the leader should have the qualities to be able to identify good members among the team to work with, and to go beyond the team to get the nation together to move as one people with one destiny.
Was John Mahama a bad leader?
You cannot use the term bad leader.
How would you say it?
He did his best. I mean, everybody saw him working very hard. You know, at the end of the day, the verdict of the people is that no, we're not satisfied with your performance, and therefore we need a change. And then they elected His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So it's not about my verdict, it's the verdict of the electorate of the country. And so there is an opportunity now for the party to rebuild. And so you realize that a lot of the good materials in the party are very concerned, and a number of them have come up. There were some initial indication of many more, but at least 6, in addition to the former president, have filed the nominations, including myself. And so we're going in for the contest, and I think that is healthy.
Was it difficult getting the 320,000 cedis to file the nomination?
I was among those who actually petitioned against that quantum, not because we will not be in the position to mobilize, you know, because if you recall from the 2001 to 2008, if you ask the party who was the one leading in mobilizing the resources, it was me. as the then leader of the opposition. And I was able to mobilize monies for us even to do by-elections and the rest. So mobilizing money to conduct an election like this is not a problem for me. But the principle was what we're totally against, and that would permeate through the whole system. And you'll be surprised that maybe in the next election, they'll be asking the aspirants to bring out maybe 1 million Ghana cedis. I see and hear people argue that if you want to be a president of the nation, you should give an indication that you'll be able to mobilize money. Now, what we're doing now is flag bearer. And so if a flag bearer is being called upon to mobilize 400,000 Ghana cedis, then when we go for the presidential contest, then the presidents will be called upon to mobilize more than 1 million. You understand? But that is not an argument that should be supported by any person.
So you didn't struggle to raise it, but you just objected to it on principle? On
principle, yes. Right. I didn't struggle at all.
Okay. Now, you are up against quite a field of competent aspirants. Many people consider the former president to be the one to beat. And he is very popular, still very popular in your party. How are you going to beat him?
Well, we're dealing with delegates, you know. We're not dealing with all members of the party. Now we're dealing with an electoral college of about 280,000. That's quite a large number there. Yeah. Don't forget that the elections of 2016 is not an election where you can see that many more people from outside MPP voted for Nana Akufo-Addo. You see that it's rather many more people of the NDC that did not go to the polls. And so when you go to a region and you see that the numbers have dipped from that of the 2012 elections, then you try to find out whether that number rather moved on to the MPP, and you saw that no, it's rather they did not go out to vote. And they did not go out to vote because of dissatisfaction. And one of the main reasons that the Kwesi Boche committee was able to unearth was the fact that the rank and file of the party were so dissatisfied with his leadership. And so they did not go out to vote for him, and they did not vote for MPP. And so that is there. It is true that, yes, being a former president, he's been in the market for long, and though he's better known. I was in the market for 8 years, but that's many years ago, and many of the youth might not have been able to recollect those days. But many of the seniors are still very well aware of what I did, and the record is there. I mean, from time to time, the attention of the youth is drawn to it. That if not because of my leadership, the NDC would have, by this time, maybe not existed, if any at all, not in this form and in this strength. So
you believe the NDC owes its survival in large part to you?
From 2001, yes. I don't think that is questionable at all. I think many people have accepted and admitted that my leadership really revived the NDC, because there was a very clear pronouncement by the late Honorable J.H. Mensah that by the time they finished prosecuting the leaders of the party, there will be no party known as NDC. And he didn't only say it outside, he even stated it on the floor of Parliament. And so that was, we believe, coming from such a stalwart of the MPP, it might have been a decision of the party to run down the NDC like it has done for CPP and PNC. And so I had to stand to that, and my colleagues in Parliament and a few outside the party were available to support. And on a daily basis, I was on my feet, and I think that we managed within 2 years to revive the party, to revamp the party, to rebrand the party, and we had our National Congress in 2003, and that brought back the rank and file on board. Many people who were, taking some back seat, and some who were trying to even run out of the country, came back. Some people had declared that they've retired from politics. Some have decided to join the pastoral, but they all came back to the party, and we, through a change of strategy from 2005, were able to win the 2008 election. So I know what it takes to lead a party to win an election.
Now, your record in public life has mainly been in Parliament. You pointed to the, 30 years that you've spent in? 26 years, forgive me, that you've spent in Parliament, and of course in several roles. Currently you are the second Deputy Speaker. One would expect that this would be your natural constituency, if you will, that the place where you would easiest find support for your flag bearership bid would be in Parliament, where your works are so well known. But is that the case? What is your relationship with the minority in Parliament today like?
You've forgotten something. Let me say that I've spent 3 years as a cabinet minister.
That's true.
I've also spent 18 years as a national executive committee of my party, and as also a member of the Council of Elders and functional executive committee, because of the roles as a minority leader and a majority leader. The parliament that you know is very dynamic, and it's not the same members of parliament that I worked with from 2001 to 2008. This is a new crop of members of parliament who, for good reason, many keep on telling me that they had the opportunity to serve in the President Mahama's era. And so they owe it as a gratitude not to turn against him, because they see that that will be ingratitude. It's not because they are against me, but this is where many of them have indicated they are caught up. They have experienced my leadership, and His Excellency John Dramani Mahama himself did for almost 8 years when, as a minority leader, he was the ranking member on communication and acted like director of communication, and was always in my office for us to work together. So we know each other very well.
Right.
And so they have that. And some have been able to come out clearly to declare support for me. Others are doing that silently behind the scenes. But because, you see, the culture of democracy in Ghana is not yet consolidated. And so we're not even talking about entrenching it. It's not yet consolidated. So there's that air of fear and intimidation. And so many might want to come out, okay, but for fear of being identified and maybe dealt with.
You think they will be dealt with?
Yeah, we have experienced it all over.
Dealt with by whom?
There are some misguided members who may think that once you are opposing somebody, it means you hate the person or you are an enemy to the person. And sometimes they go to the extent of even attacking the person. Apart from that, when you go through social media, you see the discourse is that of use of intemperate language, insults and vituperations and all those things. It's not nice for the building of our democratic culture. And I think that some people dislike it, just like people are not willing to join politics now, not because they don't want to serve the nation in that position, but because of the filth in our politics. It's the same for the members of Parliament.
It's an important point you make. But I guess what you're saying then is that members of Parliament, having experienced your leadership in Parliament and experienced the former president's leadership, are opting to support the former president in larger numbers because they are afraid that if they don't, the party will turn on them, as in, members of the party will turn on them and victimize them possibly?
Oh, it's happened. It's happened.
Then how are you going to win if, from what you've described,
do you know what surprises
the party
are? Do you know it?
You plan to
what
pull
happened,
a surprise.
Do you know what happened in 2016?
Yes.
That's good. Were they not very sure of winning the election?
Yes.
Yes, and what happened?
No, they didn't
It is
win.
because, you see, what people say is not what they do. There's vast difference between those things, at least as I know in politics. And so I'm not worried because I'm moving all right, and I'm moving with a very capable team, and we're going around the country, and we're getting the support, and we are encouraged and supported and funded by members of the party. And so we have no problem at all. We're just giving them a message, and that this is what we will do if given the opportunity to turn things around, to make things different, and to get our fundamentals right as a country. Because all what we're getting now are the effects of the wrong fundamentals we are implementing. And so we will have to go through that and then build up those things, and people are buying into it. So I have no problem with contesting any person at all. And at the end of the day, whoever the delegates say they want at this particular time, it's our duty to go behind the person and support the person to contest the 2020 elections.
So in summary, members of parliament may not feel comfortable openly supporting you for fear of reprisals from members of the party, but somehow these same members of the party who might actually, for want of a better word, attack MPs who don't support John Mahama, will turn up at the polls, at least the delegates will turn up at the polls and not vote for John Mahama.
Well, your vote is a secret, Your vote is a secret.
So
and now you are dealing with a larger...
Why are you so sure they will vote for you?
No, nobody is ever sure you'll be voted for. You just pray and hope that it will happen.
Is that the strategy?
And you know that my very good friend, Sir John, said you should fear delegates. But I rather said you should rather respect delegates, not fear delegates. And once they take the decision, you should respect that decision and go with that decision. Maybe it's not your time. If your time comes, definitely they will give you the nod. And so I strongly believe, and it has occurred in many, many areas, even at the National Congress, the people we thought were going to win were not those who won. But outwardly, everywhere, when people were talking about this will be our national chairman, this and that, is that what happened? No. And so I am still very, very confident that looking at my performance over the years, looking at my human relations and my interactions and my message in particular, because you need to give people the hope that things will get better, okay? And I think that message of hope in trying to make the NDC a party of choice of Ghanaians. Don't forget, there are some basics that many people miss out. To be able to win an election today, a party will need to reach out beyond its following to get the 50+1.
Yeah.
You will have a complete split in the middle now. The NPP will have a strength of about around 44, 45%. The same for the NDC, 44, 45%. And that is the strength. And so you need to go beyond that to be able to attract the floating voters to vote for you to get the 50+1. And that's why you see the figures are always around 51, 53, thereabout. It was only during Jerry John Rawlings' time that we had about 58%, even with that magnitude of popularity at that time, he only managed to gather 58%. And so people must honor that. Apart from that, you need to have the support of the partners. And so you need support outside Ghana to be able to win an election in Ghana.
That's interesting.
Very, my brother, very interesting.
Support from non-Ghanaians or Ghanaians outside?
Well, Ghanaians outside and non-Ghanaians. Don't forget that a larger part of our budget is funded from outside. And so any time that the partners outside are dissatisfied with your governance, they simply hold back the funding. And so most of the promises that you've made, you will not be able to fulfill them. And then the people will turn against you. You understand? So there are a lot of forces when you go through these things. It's not just the members that go dancing at congresses, shouting and singing songs that will let you win a national election. Not at all. So you must have some international appeal, okay? And people should be able to do a research on you and assure themselves that when you are president, definitely you'll be able to do 1, 2, 3. Not just in the interest of Ghana, but that in the interest of the whole world, the global interest, you know. So international politics matter a lot in the local politics.
That may be a matter of fact, but does that not somehow conflict with our own laws around elections and the fact that there should not be any foreign influence?
No,
I mean,
no,
if there can be such an indirect
there's no law
influence.
saying there should be no foreign influence.
That's interesting.
The influence. The law is talking about contribution.
Well, you talk about funding and with the withholding
Funding
of
for
funding.
national programs, not party programs.
So that doesn't contradict.
No, you have a lot of grants, you have a lot of aids. They don't contradict. You talk about the nation.
If these donors say that we won't give funding for national programs if this party wins, is that not pretty much the same thing?
A party in power will come with a budget. When you go through the budget, you see quite a good percentage, large percentage, being supported from funding from outside.
Yeah.
And those are not going to party activities. They are going to national programs and projects. If they want to disagree with you or they are not satisfied with your leadership, they don't let them flow.
Right.
Again, they look at your performance, and in the case of the former president, they are in the better position to judge his performance when he was president and got those support, what happened, and that kind of thing. Some of us haven't got that baggage with us anyway. That is the international. The local one too is there. And so they'll be looking at all those things. And me, for example, they'll be able to go through my background and my performance as a member of parliament and a leader of parliament. They also go through my record in the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, the Interparliamentary Union, and a number of international organizations that I've been a founding member. They also look at my role as one of the philanthropists, you know, a very compassionate person. And so they will look at all those things and see, well, this person of high integrity, because that is one of the bane of underdevelopment in Africa, corruption. They have to look at all those things, and they will definitely give a nod to the person that they believe will be able to gather more votes and really focus on the overall interests of Ghanaians and not a few greedy folks, you know.
Right. Now, your confidence is unassailable. But I'm going to ask you, just for the intellectual exercise, to imagine a situation where, at the end of this process, you are not chosen as flag bearer. Just for a moment, imagine that.
Yeah.
If, at that point, the winner, any of them, let's pick John Mahama as an example, asks you to be his flag bearer, would you accept? I mean, his running mate, would you accept?
You know, in leadership, it's dangerous to do that. In leadership, it's dangerous to do that. When you have a contest with somebody, then after you have won, you say the person should now be your running mate. No. You likely, human nature, to be undermined by the person. So I would never advise that in leadership at all.
Well, you have advised the former president on many occasions and complained that your advice wasn't taken. So,
yes. But that does not prevent me from giving pieces of advice. It's my duty to advise. It's anybody's duty to take the advice or not to take it.
So if he came to you, that's what your response would be? That
definitely. Any person who will come and say, no, I don't advise that. It's not. It will not be good. It won't be a good partnership.
Okay. Still in this imagined state where, you know, it hasn't gone your way, would you contest for the parliamentary seat again?
That basically is not a decision of the individual. You have a role to play there. But most of the time, you have to go beyond your personal interest to the common good. And sometimes you are persuaded by the common good, the collective interest, to do that kind of thing. And so as at now, I will not come out to say I will contest or I will not contest. At that appropriate time, we will sit down and discuss. Because you see, you have offered to serve people. You can go and tell them now, I'm okay, I want to go back. And the people can say no. You'll be able to gather a lot of capital, which you can use to our benefit. We don't want to go and start from the scratch. The problem we have in our African politics is that we will not be able to get the line of succession and to get good roles for senior members to still remain relevant at all times. Okay, we easily cut them off and we lose all that wealth they have gathered. In Singapore, which is a very good country to always cite because we are ahead of them after independence, they even have positions, they have chief ministers. Okay, and they use that position to be able to mentor and groom and bring up the young and new ministers. They are not usually well paid. You don't need to pay them, but you just give them those things so that they can remain relevant to the system. When there are issues, there are challenges, they are given the opportunity to share their experiences for the betterment of the country. We don't seem to have that in our system. Again, you realize that even we're not tapping our traditional wisdom and experience, and we cut off all the traditional leaders. We don't bring in the chiefs on top of national governance. Even at the local governance, we've eliminated them. The religious leaders, we've eliminated them. If you look at the civil society leaders, the same. And media, for example, you know, media being the fourth arm of governance, you know, it's been left like it's a private sector enterprise. And that is costing this country a lot. It is not, you know. All these will have to come up. The president only offers leadership. He doesn't know it all. And you need to bring all these leaders at various levels to be part of the governance of the country. They're not going to play partisan politics. They're going to play national governance. And one area I want to focus on is how to improve the governance of this country. Because when people are talking about the governance, they talk about an individual. And we are not in a dictatorship. You know, we are in multi-party democracy. And that one is teamwork. And you, given the leadership, must be able to identify these good materials, bring them on board in order to push the national agenda together. We've jettisoned that, and I think that is costing the nation a lot of harm, and some of us will need to come on board to rectify things.
Okay, let's talk a bit more about Parliament. You've mentioned how your desire is to contribute as much as possible to the fight against corruption. You must be very frustrated then at the snail's pace at which the Right to Information Bill is making its way through Parliament.
Very disappointed, very disappointed. In fact, in the last Parliament, as the leader, I was able to, within a few months, got the coalition of civil society organizations, particularly most of them were coming from the media and the legal background. And we took weeks at Koforidua to go through the whole bill and to adopt most of the proposals of the African model. Okay? Then we gave it a local touch and improved on this. And I promised them that we're going to pass it. Unfortunately, the culture of politics in Ghana is so bad. We had some people definitely opposed to it in Parliament. That is normal. But because, you know, we will not be able to support and strengthen Parliament, the member of Parliament is always caught in between a lot of pressures. And so you see members showing up and most of the time leaving to do other things. Either they may be at committee levels or they are rushing to their constituency, because in the constituency they want to see you when they are doing anything, you know, socially, or culturally, traditionally, even funerals and the rest. And so you see the members almost always present in the morning, but as time goes on, you see the house empty. And my very good friend, Honorable Katie Hammond, was always quick to lap at that to try to draw attention to quorum. No, we tried moving, it couldn't. Again, the elections came, and then we became a lame duck, you know, government. Once another government has been voted for, you will not have that muscle again to push things. So anytime we tried before the handing over, our friends were unwilling to go with us.
But
so we said that there's no problem. Even if this government comes into power and says that they want it to be implemented, we are prepared to do that. And so since we started from 2017, don't forget that the practice of democracy is that the bill will have to go back to the new government. The new government will have to take it through the process again before bringing it. Then the new bill that came is almost like the former one, but with some additions. I must say that the delay has also helped a bit, because it has helped to improve the knowledge on the right to information. And so we've even moved from freedom of information. You know, we're now talking about it as right to information. And so the delay is educating many more people. But I can tell you there are still a number of civil society organizations that have petitioned Parliament to even stop the consideration of the right to information bill, because they disagree with it seriously. But we still believe that if they have any disagreement, they should come before Parliament and air that they shouldn't prevent, they cannot stop us from proceeding with it. So we're going with it. We've done a lot of it now, and I'm sure that in the next meeting we'll pass it.
Now you talk about you know, the outgoing government at the end of 2016 being a lame duck, and that hadn't been a reason why it didn't get passed, even though from your description, and I think Mr. Jose Wusu has said pretty much the same thing, the bill was ready. It was ready to be passed at that time.
Yes.
But help me understand, I mean, when you say you were a lame duck, you did pass several other bills in those last, you know, days. And this, I mean, what would have gone wrong if you, as the majority at the time, had said, you know what, we have the numbers, this thing is ready, we're going to pass it? What would have gone wrong?
Well, where was the majority? Where was the majority? You only have 106 winning. And so you lost your majority to start with.
But the new parliament hadn't begun, it was still the old one. So you still had the majority. You were still majority leader in December 2016.
Yeah, but where is the majority? They have to be present. We talk about business on the floor. We're not just talking about names and numbers, okay? If you are a member of parliament and then you go for an election and you are voted out, you have a few days to see how you can reorganize your life.
So they weren't turning up?
You'll be spending your life on the floor of parliament? No, it's not practicable. You know, you start looking at how maybe you can resettle your kids who are in some educational institutions in Accra, look at how your family could be shifted from Accra to another location. And, you know, there are some of those things, apart from the hurt and shock and all those things which you have to go over, the psychological trauma sometimes. There are things that people go through. And so within that transitional period, it's always difficult to get the numbers on the floor to go on with the business. This is not to say that Parliament is not to blame for the delay, because I was part of the initial team when the Institute of Economic Affairs started this whole journey in 1999. Myself, Kobina Fosu, and I think Honorable Ken Jirasa had to, from Parliament, go to try to support them to start the initial drafting. We did some discussion on it. From 1999 up to this time, we've not been able to pass it. Well, that is an indictment on Parliament, and I completely accept that. We could have done better, but again, we need to improve on the practices and processes in Parliament. Because when, for example, I came back as a leader from 2014, and we had then worked on the bill before I became the leader. It was those days that there was some gap. I was called back to be the chairman for the second time of the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. And it was during that period, 2013 and part of 2014, that I got the whole bill worked on. We had proposed about 52 pages amendments, huge proposal, changed almost all the policy trusts of the bill. And therefore, we had to send them back to the AG's department for them to represent a modeled new bill, which took a lot of time to come back. And so it came back in 2016, and then we started. And that is also election year. And so it was caught up in that kind of thing. And that's the main reason, but that's rationalization. Right. We should still, as expected of members of parliament, come together to be able to push it through. But we're doing that now, and I don't have any ill feeling or bad feeling that is being done during the New Patriotic Party's era. The important thing is that the bill must be passed, because the information that is generated on daily basis are information paid for already by the people. And so the people have a right to that information. For the interest of the people, security and otherwise, then you can decide that these are confidential, these are secret or whatever. And so you have to go through some processes before they are released, but not that they are not the information for the people. The people have the right to get that information for free. It's when you are looking for that information in the different format or form that the cost implications will have to come in. But if you're just going for it as information, it should be given to you for free because you've already paid for it.
That's right. All right. Now, the Speaker of Parliament made some comments at the end of the last sitting. He suggested that Ghanaians should stop putting pressure on Parliament to pass this bill. How did you take those words? I mean, this is the leader of the House of Representatives, if you will, saying that those who you represent should stop putting pressure on you to do what they want.
Well, that was from the Speaker, and you know, our Speaker has a different, the current Speaker actually has a different style, and he's always prepared to face it, you know, frontally, and you can listen to his lectures, his presentations, where it's like, from the sense I get from many Ghanaians, like changing the course of history of Ghana, you know, because of some of the things that he says and presents at his lectures. And I think that it was because some pressures were being put, and people were trying to blame maybe the Speaker as the one presiding, and members, that he said, well, maybe the proper words he wanted to put was, please, just give us a few more time and it will be done. Okay?
Will this thing be done? Will it get done? We've heard so many promises, so many timelines. Most recent timeline is that as soon as you come back, we'll get it.
But if they tell you as soon as you come back, what is that timeline? There's no timeline, you know. We should be very specific. I believe that in the next meeting, we should be able to pass it. But you know, that also depends on the position of the government.
Right.
Now, if government brings some other businesses and put some high premium on that businesses and got the leader of government business to focus on that, you know, then you see that Parliament is rather doing other businesses and not the right to information.
So really it's the executive that controls what Parliament prioritizes. The tail wags the dog.
That, you know, that is what we have now in the country, because all of us, the concept that we have adopted, which is wrong in a way, has been misunderstood to mean that governance is all about the executive. And so even in the annual budgets, they take almost getting to 90% of the budget. And then the crumbs are left for the Parliament and the judiciary. But you cannot have democracy in a country where you have an all-in-all executive that is the master of all that is surveys, and that the parliament and the judiciary are such weak arms that they can't checkmate the executive. And that is wrong. And we need to correct that. You don't need to amend the constitution to be able to do that. You just need to resource the organs. For example, when I talk about sourcing the organs, you know that at the judiciary, technology is not that high. The number of cases on a judge is too huge, and you need to spend years before a judge to be able to get justice, and that is justice delayed, justice denied. In Parliament, the members of Parliament are individuals. We don't have the technical wing to be able to do research, analysis, and then, you know, provide that information to the member of Parliament to advocate or articulate on the floor of Parliament. And that is a very serious weakness. And so we're very good at making laws, even though we've not been able to pass the right to information bill.
Right.
But, you know, in ranking, we perform poorly when it comes to oversight. In ranking, we've ranked the African countries, and we perform poorly. And so we need to do that because we need the technical wing. Even when you are to pass a law, there should be a team that should be able to analyze and draw the attention of Parliament to the financial implications of that legislation and where to get the resources to be able to implement that legislation. And we don't have that.
Speaking of how Parliament could be better, Professor Bonzi Simpson spoke most recently at on the day to commemorate the Constitution, Constitution Day, 7th of January. He made a number of recommendations, things he thought would make Parliament better. Number one, he thought that the constitutional provision that the President must take 60% of his appointees, ministerial appointees from Parliament.
More than 50%.
More than 50%, sorry. That should be removed, and that the President actually shouldn't bother Parliament when it comes to appointments, that he can find competent people elsewhere. Two, he suggests that there should be a minimum qualification for those seeking parliamentary seats, and that he believes that will enhance the quality of work that Parliament is able to do. What do you think of these suggestions?
The first issue is perfectly right. We've stated these things many times, not today, even during the time of His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings. Because we thought that one person cannot be effective in two positions, as a member of Parliament and as a Minister of State. At least one of the arms will suffer. And most of the time Parliament is suffering because the conditions of service for the ministers are better than that of the members of Parliament. And I don't think that is even right. I mean, the people that are voted for, when we're talking about multi-party democracy, we're basically talking about elected officials who are to give the leadership. And those that are usually elected on the day of the election, as the President and the Member of Parliament, I don't see why an appointee should be the one that is better remunerated than the elected representative of the people. In my governance, I will make sure that the members' conditions of service are better than that of the ministers, and you will see whether the members will be struggling now to catch the eye of the President and not that of the Speaker. You know, but when members are now elevated, as the word they use, to a ministerial position where they enjoy better conditions, well, each member of Parliament will try to work to also attract the attention of the President to go up there, and that is affecting Parliament. The two positions could work together in a parliamentary system where all of it is Parliament. And in a parliamentary system, the power is in Parliament. Parliament, like the Britain one, is sovereign. You understand? The Prime Minister is a member and subject to the direct control of the Parliament. In the presidential system, the way we've adopted it, and that is one of the challenges we have as a country, the lack of clarity of the concept that we adopted, you know.
Do you think this was all done to protect former President Rawlings or reassure him somewhat as we move from military rule to democratic rule?
No, not at all. This was basically informed by a very, I must say, very poor analysis of our history, you know, because those concepts only, the parliamentary system lasted 2 years, the presidential lasted 2 years, and they thought that because of that, it's better to rather combine, get a hybrid. Well, we cannot blame the framers of the Constitution, because at least they got it right. We've been able to be there for 26 years now, which meant there are some good things about that hybrid system. But after 25 good years, 26 years now, experience, it's high time for us to relook at it and then plug the loopholes and sharpen the rough edges and move on. On the second point of minimum qualification, I will not know what that means. But you see, parliaments everywhere acts as mirror of the people they represent. And so if you have basically an illiterate country and you're trying to put minimum qualification that may put high premium on education, you may be represent the interests of the educated elite and not of the illiterates. You need to have, you see, the system we are practicing is one of representation. So all sectors of society want to see that their interest is represented in parliament until they then become part and parcel of it and they are interested in it. And so I don't know what minimum qualification he's talking about, because you don't need in many countries to articulate on the floor of parliament in English. In South Africa, they were using about 11 languages. Okay, you only need to have a simultaneous interpretation and translation of what is said in the local dialect. You know, you do that in order to get a collective action of the people in the country, a buy-in of what is happening of all the people, so that some don't become stumbling blocks or pullbacks. And so we should be very careful about this issue about minimum qualification.
Right. We have almost no time left, but I still want to ask you two things, so I'll ask them very quickly. You've pointed out the fact that Parliament needs a support system, a technological wing and so forth, to help MPs better appreciate issues and, you know, also translators and so forth, so that they can deliberate no matter what their educational level may be. Of course, that costs money. Would you support a call to either scrap or drastically reduce ex gratia so that such things could possibly be funded? I ask this because you've been there so long. You've probably benefited from ex gratia, what, 7 times so far? Would you support such a call?
Well, I don't even think there's a need for the Article 71 office holders. No, I don't think so. I think that the whole idea of the ex gratia was in good faith, I might say. But the practice has shown that it's complete waste. The members of parliament don't even benefit from it, because, as I stated initially, we haven't gotten the fundamentals right. So many of you don't know that the members of parliament hang on the ex gratia in order to go for facilities to go to contest elections. And so the time that they are paying the ex gratia, it doesn't come into your pocket. It goes into the institutions that you manage to leverage the funds to go and contest.
Was that the case for you?
Sometimes, yes. But from the very beginning, you know, I was quite a very good legal practitioner in Accra here. And I funded my own campaign, not even any financial support from the party. At least in 1992, that's what happened. And from there on, when I became the minority leader, I was lucky, you know, to be a minority leader. I have other sources of income, which usually you have to declare for tax purposes. And so I was a bit privileged than the ordinary member of parliament. But
wait, you had other sources of income while you were a minority leader?
Yeah, sure. I'm a member of the Parliamentary Service Board.
Right.
Yes. And so there's income.
Okay.
Allowances and the rest. So
right.
Yes. And then later, when I was majority leader, I was also the chairman of the board of directors of Ghana Civil Aviation.
Right.
That's additional source of income. So you are a bit cushioned than your colleagues.
Right.
And apart from that, there are some perks that Parliament will give you as a leader.
Right.
And all those things are taxed, you know, deductible, and
okay,
you are better. So it's something that I want us to do away with, this concept of ex gratia, completely. And I support the recommendation of the Constitutional Review Committee that we should establish a national emoluments commission to come out with a complete review of the conditions of service of public service, including politicians.
Okay.